When I think about the countries that I stayed away from, I mean, largely I was constrained by the fact that, like, one, I didn't know I was going to go throughout all of these other unrecognized countries because I didn't think I was going to get banned from Turkey. You know, crazy. But the other thing was, like, I wanted to sort of shine a light on this conversation as it is globally. Like, these aren't the only unrecognized nations that exist in the world. There's literally probably about 100 of them, as far as I know.
Wow.
And that's, you know, there's you look at Taiwan too, you know. There's partial recognition of Taiwan. Tibet is another one of these areas.
Right.
There's constant independence movements in Spain, obviously. Romania even has an independent contingent in it. So I think that there are independence movements in the Transylvanian area. So this is kind of indicative of where we're moving globally, in my opinion, anyway. Because now the things that previously, you know, we're not a part of empires anymore. Like, we're not a part of the Ottoman Empire. The time of empire is largely spent. And now we're, as you say, like, trying to become a global community. But what does a global community mean?
Right.
Can you separate your own national identity away from the pool of wealth that your nation controls and its ability to do violent force, presumably on your behalf? And that I don't know. You know, what it kind of goes back to the question about, like, us as Americans, right? So without the American military, without it being a wealthy and presumably prosperous nation, like, what makes us Americans? I think, so here's a good thought experiment that I think about sometimes. Let's say, you know, America goes away. And there's a huge refugee population of Americans, people calling themselves Americans, who've spread throughout the entire world. How do we group up? You know,
How do we what?
How do we group up?
Okay.
Let's say there's, you know, an American contingent in, you know, Beijing. Do we have a America town? Like, do we carve out our own, you know, little neighborhood where only Americans go? I don't know, probably not. Like, I think we would separate differently than that. Because it goes back to the individual nature. It goes back to the individual nature of being an American. Would we go back to whatever our previous nationality was? I don't know. Like, how do you find those people who believe the same national story as you do? And because of that, even though you don't know that person, you have a shared affinity with them.
Right.
I mean, right now we're seeing this movement of people who are, I think they're calling them the passport bros. So yeah, like there are these golden passport schemes. And this is huge in the crypto universe, where it's like, okay, well, I have a bunch of wealth, but the U.S. makes it really difficult to cash out my cryptocurrency, or it's you know, my businesses are not protected in any sort of legal framework in the United States. So what do? Get a new passport. Malta is like this huge place for this. You get a Maltese passport, suddenly you get access to the EU, and they have pretty liberal laws in terms of working with alternative finance. And so we're already seeing wealthier classes of people start to find alternatives to their citizenship so that they can benefit more.
Wow.
And there's even, oh man, this is such a great point, and I can't remember what it's called exactly. The Seafarer movement. Can you look that up?
Seafarer?
Oh, this is crazy. Yeah. This is really dope. It's like billionaires who are starting their own nations on the sea. Try Seafarer or Peter Thiel.
Libertarian.
There you go.
Seasteading Utopia from Peter Thiel. Whoa, what is this? Silicon Valley billionaires' dream of a floating libertarian utopia may have finally been killed. Peter Thiel's dreams of a... Okay, that's the same title. Keep going down. Wow. What was this all about?
So the seasteading movement, from what I understood, was again, it's this movement where you can have all the benefits of coming from, whatever nation you come from, but you can also resist any detriments that come in the form of taxation. Right?
Okay.
So, hey, I don't live in America anymore. I live on these crazy libertarian boats.
Right.
Or maybe on an island in the Danube River. Or in the metaverse.
Right. And now you don't have to pay taxes.
Mm-hmm. This is the thing that I'm talking about the statehood as a service model, right? It's citizenship that provides for you the things that a nation provides for you, but it's essentially the wealth and protection of the nation state without actually the culture or the story of the nation state.
Right. So if you're a guy who's like a billionaire like Peter Thiel living on a yacht being a seafarer, you can still have businesses in America and make tons of money, not to pay taxes, but you just don't get, but can you still benefit from having residence there?
I have no idea.
So if you were a seafarer like this, would you be able to legally be a citizen of the United States as well as like some other country?
So there are certain countries that allow for like dual citizenship.
Yeah.
And the U.S. is like one of the two countries in the world that taxes you no matter where you live. Mm-hmm. Actually, weirdly, the other one is Eritrea.
Okay.
Yeah. So that I don't quite understand.
Well, that's an interesting thing that people always complain about in media too. They complain about like all the billionaires like Elon and Bezos and Zuckerberg like putting all their bank accounts overseas so they don't have to pay taxes.
Right. So what happens if you put your life overseas so that you don't have to pay taxes?
Right.
Then this is sort of spelled out in a book. It's actually pretty haunting. I think it was written in 1997. It's called The Sovereign Individual. Mm-hmm. And so what it does is it predicts the rise of the failure of nation states to provide what citizens would need or want, and the rise of self-sovereign individuals who can provide their own goods, services, and protection.
Right.
And so, like, I mean, I'm, and you'll see in the book, like, I'm of a couple of minds about like the libertarian leanings that exist, especially in the cryptocurrency space and in Liberland, certainly, because I think that there's like two ways that you end up becoming a hardcore libertarian, and it's like, one, you're wealthy enough to afford only private services.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
The other way is your state's collapsed, and suddenly you're a libertarian overnight because the state isn't there to provide any services for you. Mm-hmm. So suddenly you just became a libertarian. And so I think the people on the one side of things, where they've become wealthy enough to afford only private services, to sort of dance in between the borders of the world, and to fund themselves beyond borders and oftentimes laws. Mm. They look at the rest of the state-based population and they're like, well, we did it, why can't you? And it's like, well, because it takes a lot of capital to sort of reach the escape velocity of the nation state.
Right.
And at the point that you reach that escape velocity, you're not believing that national story anymore because you just don't care. In my opinion.
Right.